Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and welcome to another review. Today I'm going to do a how I felt about for a somewhat little-known documentary that I found out about a couple of years ago. I heard that this was in production, or maybe it was even before that, because I guess this was actually already finished and I didn't know about it by 2020. And anyway, this is, so I found out about this and was really surprised that somebody was making a documentary about this particular subject, really wanted to see it, and then I kind of forgot all about it, and just kind of out of the blue the other day, I was like, oh yeah, whatever happened to that documentary about Kevin MacLeod, who makes royalty-free music on a website called Incompetech. A lot of us YouTubers know about him, have used his music. A huge percentage of YouTubers have gone to him because for the longest time, he was the only place that you could get free music to put behind videos and not have to pay for them, and especially to get a variety of different kinds of music. And now there's more, but he's still the main guy that a lot of people go to, even while YouTube has its own archive, its own library of free stuff that you can use. Kevin MacLeod is still kind of the guy for this, which is truly extraordinary. So anyway, the documentary is called Royalty Free, the music of Kevin MacLeod, and it came out to a festival, I guess, in 2020, and then was just released on digital, and I guess there's a disc that's available as well just last year. And like I said, I would have reviewed this already, but I just found out about it. This is a thing that is weirdly, and again, I know I'm not alone in this, but weirdly kind of near and dear to my heart, because I feel like Kevin MacLeod has been scoring Geekvolution going all the way back to the beginning. There are several tracks of MacLeod's that I think of as the themes for shows that I've made in the past. And I don't go to his music as often now as I used to, not because I don't like it, but just because we don't do as much in the way of like straight up themes now. But you've heard some of his stuff, even if you don't realize it, if you've been a subscriber of mine for any amount of time, especially going back to the Cap and Vince days. And I'll play you a couple of tracks here. Here's the big one that you guys will remember. So this is the old Geeks Not Nerds intro, and I'll play you that just real quick. Listen to this for a minute. Well, for some reason, I can't get it to go. I'm not sure why. One second. There we go. A lot of you guys will recognize this theme. And this is one that I haven't heard in a lot of other places. Some of the music that I've used of MacLeod's it pops up a lot, and I've heard quite a bit. One of the more amusing ones is, and I don't know the name of the track, but one of the more amusing examples is a song that plays almost in almost, if not all, episodes of Half in the Bag from Red Letter Media, when they do the establishing shot of the VCR repair shop, that piano melody, dun 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 dun. If you watch that show, you'll be familiar with that melody. That's Kevin MacLeod, and there is a really popular toddler series that my little girls watch on YouTube that also uses that occasionally. So anyway, he's really ubiquitous. His stuff, as the documentary goes into, has been used in popular stuff and regular, just everyday people like me, YouTube videos, and the big stuff that some of you guys would be familiar with. He's done some video games. I forget what exactly they brought up there. There's like a racing game that he's got songs in, but you know, stuff you've heard of. He's apparently got a track in Fargo, which I was not aware of. Apparently Scorsese's people called him up, and one of the editors was like, hey, I've been using this track for temp music. and it works really well in the movie. So we were just wondering if we could use it. And that bit in the movie is really funny because the person on the phone tells him. And at first, of course, he doesn't even believe that it's Scorsese's people, and he just hangs up on them. The lady has to call back, and she's like, "No, this is for real. We want to pay you, X number of dollars." And he's like, "Oh, well, you could just pay a $30 license to use the song forever and not have to credit me, because that's what he does. Or you can just give me credit and it's free." And she's like, "Well, we were ready to pay you a lot of money." And he goes, "Yeah, well, that's okay too." He is a really interesting character, and was really kind of enthralled to get to sit through a character study of him. The movie is an hour and a half long, and like I said, it is an independent project, but made pretty professionally, I would say. Like, you can tell it's an underground thing. You can tell it's not backed by a studio, but it's real well made. I would say it's probably like a half step up, to put it in music terms, from my documentary. Not to compare too much, too much to myself, but just if you've seen Midwestern Panels, the production is kind of like that, except it's a little bit more produced than that. They have some animations and things which we did not do. Really, my main criticisms about the film are on the technical side, actually, and a little bit in the way of organization. There's some places where I feel like the structure of it is a little bit muddled, where we kind of jump from topic to topic a little bit too often. Kind of like one of my off-the-cuff live videos. But it's overall, like I said, pretty professionally made. There's also a voiceover. There's a narrator who I think might be the filmmaker. I can't remember if that was the credit for the person that was doing the narration, Ryan Camarda, but I think it is, and no disrespect to him, I think he made a wonderful film, and I'm glad I saw it, and the whole reason I'm reviewing it, I'm feeling it, by the way, the whole reason I'm reviewing it is to give it some exposure and let people know about it. I think it's crazy how not famous Kevin is. He's one of the most famous, not famous people that I can think of, and especially after watching this documentary, it's kind of crazy how many people are familiar with him but have no idea who he is. And I thought it was actually kind of sad that he says, and he's not bragging when he says this. This guy is like the least braggadocious person in the world. It's almost like he doesn't want fame, but he does want recognition, which are kind of different things. Like, he wants to be recognized for the work that he does. He has a passion for all the music that he puts out, but he's not interested in, adulation and even money that much. He just wants to be able to live. He seems like a real frugal, kind of Spartan living kind of guy. But anyway, he has a quote at the beginning where he says, and this is a nice kind of hook to really get you into it. He says, "I am one of the most listened to composers in the world right now, and my stuff has been played more than anybody else on the internet." And they've got the numbers to back that up. And he says, but I'll go play a little club or a bar or something to 24 people. He's so unassuming and invisible, and nobody knows who he is, but everybody knows who he is, or at least has heard his music before. So it's really interesting. But anyway, back to the voiceover thing. That's one of the only things that kind of took me out of the documentary. You've got a narrator who doesn't enunciate real well, and it's the only thing that makes it feel a little bit more amateurish and a little bit less professional. And I just think he should have hired somebody to do that part of it, because it's not a professional voiceover, and there's too much of it for how not experienced that voice is. But that, and again, some structure stuff, and not even a real big deal, is really the thing I would complain about with it. But the movie, like I said, is a good character study of the man. It gets into the ins and outs of his personality, who he is, his kind of quirkiness. His friends and his girlfriend talk about him like kind of a big kid, and he's a really interesting walking contradiction, the way the movie frames it, where he is a really like social guy in certain ways, but he's also really antisocial in other ways. He's the kind of guy, and I've known a lot of people like this, and especially creative people. He reminds me a little bit of my stepdad, where this is a person who needs human company, but there's a part of him that wants to think that he doesn't, and he's got a lot of anxiety, and I appreciate how vulnerable he allows himself to be in the movie, because you can tell he's not real comfortable being interviewed. And I remember seeing, when I first heard about this, I don't know if it was a trailer or what, because it's been a few years now, but I remember hearing him say, I don't know why somebody wants to make a documentary about me. Maybe I saw it on his website. I think that's maybe what it was, where I was going to Incompetech for music, and I saw something there in a blog post or something. Somebody's making a documentary about me. Isn't that weird? Why would anybody care to watch that? I think a lot of people, if they realized how, again, ubiquitous he is in YouTube land especially, would be interested in this subject. And I like documentaries a lot. I've kind of become sort of a documentary guy. So anything that is related to my interests and things I do, I seek out like this and want to learn as much as I can about it. But anyway, he's a pretty antisocial guy who can't help but admit that he needs some socialization. He starts in Wisconsin, I guess that's where he grew up, and then he says, one trip to New York and kind of fell in love with it and moved there, and now I guess lives somewhat between. Like, I think he still lives in New York, but, or at least at the time the documentary was made, because it's made in 19 and the copyright is 2019, but it doesn't come out until the following year, and then it doesn't come out, quote unquote, wide on the internet until 22, like I said earlier. But like I said, I appreciate how vulnerable he lets himself get, and he's an interesting, he's just a really interesting study with how, like, selfless he kind of is, but at the same time how he's accidentally created a way through giving his music out for free to be able to make a living making music. And it sounds like he is a top earner in his field now, despite the fact that he gives most everything away. And there's kind of a fun mystery in the movie from some of the interviewees who go, I don't understand how he makes money. And then the documentary actually gets into how he makes money, and that he's got multiple revenue streams, and how he accidentally is like this marketing genius, because by giving all of his stuff away for free, just because he wanted it out there, just because he wanted an excuse to do what he loves, he's a lot like me in that he has his craft and he wants to do it, but it's difficult for him to just produce for himself, just to make things and have them. So deadlines are helpful. Making stuff that people are relying on, that you have to get done or you're going to disappoint somebody, is helpful. And yes, profit motive can be a huge driving factor as well, but when you don't care as much about money as you do about the work and just having an excuse to do the work, not disappointing people, I think, can sometimes be an even better driving force. And that seems to be McLeod's attitude. And so what he'll do is he'll take commissions, so people will hire him to make something original, and that seems to be maybe the bulk of his income now. And the reason people go to him and know about him is because he's critically acclaimed. A lot of people in the field anyway, and on the internet, are aware of his music because it's everywhere, because people keep hearing it. So the genius of it is, you hear his music in a movie or in a YouTube video or something, and you go, oh, especially if you hear multiple things, you go, listen to how versatile this guy is. He's making all this music, this is talked about a lot in the documentary, that is really familiar, that isn't very often like wholly unique, but it's also earwormy, a lot of it, and I mean, some of it is just ambient, but a lot of it is memorable enough, sticks with you enough that it's not just generic either. So it fits this this kind of perfect balance between being ambient background music and feeling like something that is made specifically for the thing that you're using it in, even if. And some of it's just variety. There's so much stuff that he's done. He's got, by the time that documentary was made, like 2,000 tracks, probably a lot more now. And the idea is his stuff sounds very often like it's made directly for the thing that you put it in, even if it wasn't, because he's such a versatile writer, and that's really impressive. Like, a lot of it doesn't sound like stock music, but it's also not too specific. So that's a crazy line that the man walks. But so you'll hear a thing like that. Maybe if you heard the theme to Hot Swing, what we used as the theme for Geeks Not Nerds, you might go, oh, that's a really good kind of hook for a talk show. I'm gonna go ask him to make me something specific to the talk show I'm doing that isn't exactly that, and he could do that. And so he makes a lot of his money that way. And again, he's got a $30 license, and he's never raised his prices, I don't think, that you can buy for one song, not have to credit him, and use it forever. I don't totally know why you wouldn't want to credit him in most cases. I always really liked crediting people even that I just borrowed work from like that, just because it makes, especially when I started, because it makes it somehow adds legitimacy, or at least I thought when I was younger. It always felt like it added legitimacy to the work you were doing, where it's like, there's more than one person involved in this. It's like, it feels like an official thing. It feels like a production. So that's why I always did that. But so it talks about his attitude toward his work and why he gives things away for free, and it talks about his personal life some, and just how he operates in the world, his kind of life philosophy. I like his attitude of every day might be my last, which sounds like a cliche, but the way he puts it forward, it's like he just never lost that childlike sense of wonderment. There's a degree of a Fred Rogers in him, which I respect a lot, because Fred Rogers is kind of my hero. And then it discusses the kind of moral question of whether he's stealing music or stealing jobs, pardon me, from other people that are making music that might not be able to get their stuff out there or at least make a living at it, because, well, all you have to do is go to Incompetech and download its songs. And I like that the movie's not too one-sided about it, which is impressive, because most everybody that's interviewed in the movie, experts in music, YouTubers, Boogie is in the movie. If you're familiar with him, he's, I think, a tech and video game guy on the internet. He's done things with Review Tech USA, and that's why I know about him, because I've watched that channel. And friends and family of Kevin's and of Kevin McLeod's, and it seems like most everybody is in agreement that. So this is why it's impressive that it doesn't seem too one-sided, because it seems like most everybody actually agrees on this point, but there's still kind of the question of is the cost worth the reward? And it boils down to, we're helping a certain group of people and maybe hurting another group of people. And, in my opinion, at the end of the day, I think what he's doing is wonderful, but I also get the other side of it. It's complicated. And that's why I played in with a track that he composed, which I think I used in Spawn Year somewhere, called Complex, because the situation is indeed complex. And so on the one side, he's making it so much easier for creators of every ilk to get professional sounding music in their stuff, and he's he's encouraging creativity. There's a lot of things that exist that might not be as good if they didn't have something like Incompetech to go to, and so that's why some people kind of herald him as a hero in the artistic field, especially on the internet. On the other side, you have, again, musicians and composers who feel like if you give your music away for free, then that's encouraging regular people to not want to pay for music and to not want to pay for someone to make music for their videos and movies and video games and that sort of thing. And so it makes it hard to make a living for those people, and it hurts all of them, even if it's helping some creators. And then the rebuttal to that that's given in the movie, not just to break down everything, because I think everybody should watch it, but the rebuttal that's given to that is, yeah, but the majority of people that are using MacLeod's music for free are people that wouldn't go hire someone because it's very expensive to do that anyway. And then the rebuttal on the other side to that, of course, would be, yeah, but like Scorsese used a piece, and some games used a piece, and a rocket launch used a piece. But then I would think that, and this is just me drawing my own conclusions now. I would think that the best argument for what Kevin MacLeod is doing is, well, more people should do it the way he's doing it. He's proven, and I mean, it took him a lot of time. It took him a lot of years. Early on, he was afraid, when he quit his day job, he was afraid that he was going to wind up on the street and be homeless. So, I mean, it took him a long time to build up the regular revenue through what he's doing now, but he did prove that it's viable. That, unless you believe that one person does that and then after that, everybody wants everything for free. I don't tend to think that. I think that there still are enough people that are going to go to a composer like him, that like his material, that want something original and will pay for it. And so it's really smart, and he complains early on, and this is a structural place that I didn't care for, because this didn't have enough to do with the personal stuff we were talking about MacLeod right then in the documentary. But there's a place early on where he says, I really thought that when my music got so popular that it would change attitudes quicker, and that people would use this method more. He doesn't want to run everybody else out of business. He wants to see other musicians use this avenue in order to get a lot of free marketing and get their stuff out there so that they can then make more money than they would otherwise. He gives a really smart explanation for this, where he says, look, if you make a thing and you tell someone, okay, that'll be $5 or whatever it is, and they don't know you, they can't get more than a tiny sampling of your music, what you do, they'll say, oh, it's $5, I'm I'll go buy a sandwich or something, I'll spend my money on something else. But if you say it's free, then they'll look at it. And I can't tell you how many things that I've been able to look at either for free or through a subscription that I was paying for already, that even though I was able to look at the whole thing cover to cover, I still at the end of the day wanted to buy it anyway. And I don't necessarily have that with copyright-free music, where I don't feel the need to buy a license, but you can attribute this to lots of other things, and I think it's really viable with the marketing. And I like the way the movie breaks all that down. And it also does a really good job of explaining the legality of copyright music, the difference between Creative Commons and the license that MacLeod sells, and all of that. And it lays everything out really well for lay people. It's wonderfully informative, and it's a pretty entertaining documentary as well. So anyway, as I said, I'm feeling it. I'm really glad that I watched it. I'm glad it came out, because when it started in production and it looked like a real small Kickstarter thing, I wasn't sure when we'd see it, but it indeed is out. I put a link in the description if you are interested in watching it yourself. It's only a $2 rental on Amazon. It's not streaming right now through any any regular streaming service, but it's a pretty cheap rental, so go check that out. And I'm just going to check real quick and see if there's a couple of comments here. Not a big group today, but there's a couple people in the comments, so welcome. Thanks for being here. Brian G. I'll just read this real quick. I still watch Midwestern Panels. When's part 2 coming? I'm not planning on making another comic shop documentary, but I have kicked around a few ideas for other kinds of documentaries, so stay tuned. Eventually, I'd like to do that. I have a couple of big projects on the horizon that, or at least one big project on the horizon that I'm going to have to do before I can even think about that. But anyway, AMC, Cap, I like your life story and all, but I'm still perfectly content with He's Not Afraid of Giants and MVC Melodies. Well, yeah, I mean, that's more of the kind of stuff that I've been playing lately. I think more of it is just I don't make specifically the shows that I used to use McLeod's music for the intros for. And also, I have to be honest with you, so many people use MacLeod's music now that I've avoided it a little bit just because I don't want too much of, oh, I've heard that before. Like, why are you using the piece that's in this much more popular video that I've seen in this other part of YouTube before? So at this point, I would actually be a lot more likely, if I really wanted something like MacLeod's work, to maybe try to commission him to do something. I'd love to see what his prices are like, because I've never actually looked into that, and maybe I ought to. It's also just weird that I've had, it feels like not an actual relationship with him, of course, but a relationship with his work since '09, and I've never talked to the guy, and I'd like to do that. Like, I don't know if he'd be willing to interview or anything, but maybe at some point I'll reach out and see if I can talk to him, just because I've used so much of his music before. I definitely will use him again in, I shouldn't say definitely, I will almost certainly use him again for the Superhero Rewind movie, because I've used a lot of the tracks that I think are really good for intro songs or intros to segments, but now I would use him a lot more for background material. And now that you said that, I'll probably try to go to him more for just, basic lead-in music as well, because now I feel bad. But anyway, everybody, thanks so much for watching. I know this is I want to say this is a more niche thing. I guess documentaries are in general, but I'm telling you, this is a thing that has influenced and affected most of us on YouTube, and if you regularly watch YouTube videos, you've heard his stuff and you don't even know it, I guarantee it. But anyway, go check it out, and I will see you again real shortly. Tonight, I'm going to do a Superhero Rewind unscripted podcast about superhero movies that are great for children. So tune in for that, 10 o'clock Central tonight. Tomorrow night, a Captain Logan show at 7 o'clock Central, and that's going to be a big one, probably. It looks like we may have the James Gunn DC slate by then, so it'll be a big show if that happens, and probably almost certainly this week regardless. So if it's not tomorrow, it'll be before Thursday. So it'll be kind of a big week for us, it looks like. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. I was Captain Logan, and I'll see you again real soon. Consider checking out that documentary. Bye, everybody.